Hello and welcome to the Western Journal. Welcome to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Joe Setyen, Deputy Managing Editor for Story here at the Western Journal. I am joined by Joey Chester, an assignment editor at the Western Journal, and also by Cameron Arkind, a columnist at the Western Journal. We have a full slate of things to talk about today. Crazy news day. We are going to start by talking about some of the crazy lockdown measures in California. We are going to go from there and talk about some of President Joe Biden actually falling up the stairs. And we're going to conclude by talking about the worst mayor in America. I'll let you guess who that is before we get to that. But first, I want to do a big shout out to our sponsor, Patriot Depot. I want to thank Patriot Depot for sponsoring today's show, and I want to encourage you to check out patriotdepot.com because that's where you can find supplies for the conservative revolution. You can use the code WJLive for 20% off everything store-wide on Patriot Depot this week only. And with that, I'm going to kick things over to Cameron, who is going to talk about our first segment.
Yeah, to start us off, California Governor Gavin Newsom, pretty much at the threat of a recall election, has began easing up some of the measures here, but that doesn't mean businesses aren't still facing the consequences. One business in general, in particular in Los Angeles County in Burbank, called the Tin Horn Flat Saloon and Grill, actually has been, quote, sued, cited, had its power cut off, its doors padlocked, and all because of the California outdoor dining restrictions that we had in December. Now, having its power cut off, that happened last Friday. It's March now. And this is a big example of some of the restrictions that we're seeing here in the state of California. We were one of the only states, if not the only state, to shut down indoor dining operations. Now, I know I probably wouldn't have gone and ate here. I might have not felt super comfortable doing that, but I know a lot of people did. And you have to do your business as well, conduct your business. So what I wanted to ask you guys was it ethical for the state of California and the local government to take all these actions because they weren't complying with the health orders?
Absolutely. Oh,
no, go ahead.
Absolutely not. I think this is an incredible infringement on private businesses. And this is something that we keep seeing across America where the government thinks that they can control what private businesses do, how they can operate, who can come to their business, how many people they can have in their business, what type of business they can run. And it's wrong. And if I was this business, I would do everything I can to defy the government and stay open. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, Cameron. I mean, Joey, I think I tend to agree with you. Now, Cameron, you can speak more to this because you actually live in California under Governor Newsom. But yeah, it's definitely not ethical for the government to think that it can control a business like this.
Right.
I mean, I think we all agree that people have a right to earn a livelihood, right? You have a right to keep your business open. And I think what really just kind of bothers me is that we have, all these businesses that can stay open, right? And we've heard this over and over again. We've heard the, grocery stores staying open, which is great. They should.
Right.
But why can't restaurants stay open? Why can't places like these actually, why can't workers there earn money for their families and put food on the table? I think it's ridiculous that the government thinks they can tell people what they can and cannot do like that.
I believe there's an incredibly low amount of transmission that has happened, like COVID cases that can be traced back to restaurants and businesses being open. You're not getting COVID when you're going to a restaurant and having dinner. And the whole idea, I mean, if you look
you might.
Yeah, right.
You
but
can get COVID anywhere.
You might get into a car accident on the way to work too. It's just, you have to evaluate that risk.
Right.
So this idea that California should be forcing this business to close is ridiculous.
Yeah. Not
and I would add on that note, here in Orange County, we're a little bit more laid back with some of our government leadership, and our sheriff was like, hey, we're not going to enforce these restaurant restrictions. And at a certain point, a lot of these small restaurants just open back up fully. And a lot of them, these restaurant owners, were taking proper precautions. And the same thing happened where you had personal care services like hair and nail salons. We have a very big Vietnamese community here. And these places just start opening their businesses. And I think the thing too is Newsom and a lot of these Democrats don't understand that these business owners are impacted by COVID as well. They might have their own concerns about it, and they're taking the proper precautions. If I walk into a hair salon lately or a hair cutting place, a lot of these places are following certain restrictions. They just want to be able to conduct their business. And that's where the California government and where a lot of local governments like LA went wrong.
Yeah, and I think that kind of what it comes down to is the free market. I'm a libertarian. I will always say the free market is the answer. But I think the free market actually,
you were a libertarian. Yeah.
the free market actually works here because, once all the businesses are doing these precautions, then they don't really need the government to tell them to do that. I think that, when I got a haircut a few weeks ago, it's been a while, obviously, they took my temperature, they made me wear a mask, they took a bunch of things, they were sanitizing everything. Businesses are going to do that, right? They should be empowered to make the decisions that are best for them and for their customers, because I think a lot of customers probably won't go to a business that does not take those precautions. So I'm very pro precaution, but I think, that the businesses are going to take those. They're going to make sure that people are, relatively safe, and they don't want their customers to get COVID. They don't want a super spreader event to be linked back to them. They don't want to be the only company in maybe Orange County that doesn't have these precautions. They're going to do it because all the other businesses are doing it. That's the power of the free market.
Yeah.
You don't need the government to come in and close down those businesses.
Right. You have a choice to go to a restaurant or a business that is doing those precautions if you don't want to. And like Joe said, if these places aren't doing the precautions, chances are people aren't going to go to their businesses, and the free market solves it here.
So let's kick things over to sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you can only control so much with what people do, and California government keeps on overstepping their bounds, and I think hopefully soon they'll start to get the idea.
Yeah. If I can ask you one more question about that, Cameron, I know we've talked a lot about the recall. Do you think that, business owners who are not pleased about this sort of thing are going to, do you think that this stuff is going to affect kind of the recall vote, which it looks like it's going to be happening pretty soon?
Yeah, so we just hit the petition deadline earlier this week, and I definitely think that the election will be close. The recall election will probably be close. I don't necessarily know if a Democrat or a Republican will get that seat or if Newsom will survive it. I can't say that. But I will say is there was going to be a lot of enthusiasm from small business owners and from like restaurant owners. I think we had Andrew Gruel on the show a few weeks ago, kind of talking about like his restaurant business here. And I think a lot of these people are going to rally around these Republican candidates or whoever the replacement is going to be, because they're really upset. They tie a lot of this back to him, and a lot of people that originally may have thought that they were reliable Democrats before are now probably going to start to question things. 52% of the people in LA County that signed the petition were Democrats,
Wow.
I think at the last number that was put out. So this isn't necessarily a partisan recall that Newsom's saying.
Yeah, and I think, maybe, I don't know enough about California politics, but it sounds like, if Republicans can get someone who's not particularly a conservative firebrand, because I don't think that sort of person can win in California, if they can get someone moderate who's, better than Newsom, then maybe they have a shot.
I mean, I couldn't imagine living in California lockdowns for a year and still wanting to support the governor of that state. It'd be like us still supporting, I mean, I don't like Ducey that much, but you can imagine the response if we'd been in lockdown for basically a year. It's just not popular.
He's already not popular.
He's already not popular.
He's not a particularly popular governor, and he's done a better job than many governors in many ways. I think he's not popular for a bunch of other reasons, but regardless, I think that Joey, you want to talk to us a little bit about Joe Biden falling up the stairs?
Yeah, speaking of terrible leaders, we have our lovely president, who I now refer to as Emperor Joe Biden. I can no longer call him President Joe Biden due to his mass number of executive orders that he has issued since becoming president. He had a slight incident this morning. when he was boarding Air Force One to head to Atlanta to, I believe, address the horrific shooting that happened there. Let's roll the clip of what happened to Joe Biden this morning. That's right, folks. He didn't fall, or I should say stumble, once or twice. The man stumbled 3 times going up the stairs into Air Force One. I mean, it was just a horrible moment for the president, a moment where he looks weak, he looks feeble, he couldn't save himself walking up the stairs. And I think this is important because if we look at some of the other gaffes Biden has had recently, like mental gaffes. There was just one the other day where he slurred his words so bad we couldn't understand what he was saying. There was one where he called the Secretary of Defense the guy who runs that outfit down there. So when you combine these verbal gaffes with now this physical gaffe, there are some really big concerns that are raised. And Biden is not one to lack criticism for other people who he thinks have physical problems. There was a moment, I believe it was last year, Trump was, I forget what, it was the Navy graduation?
Yeah, it was the West Point graduation ceremony.
Yeah, Trump walked down this ramp, and the media went wild over how Trump walked down the ramp. It was a steep ramp. He kind of stumbled a little bit. He was holding the railing. Everyone thought he struggled. Whatever, it wasn't that big of a deal. Well, this is what Biden had to say about Donald Trump at that time.
Look at how he steps and look how I step. Watch how I run up ramps and he stumbles down ramps, okay? Come on.
Come on, man. Look how I stumble, or look how I run, and Trump stumbles down ramps. And Biden stumbled 3 times today. Again, the man is weak and the man is feeble. The New York Times ran a headline at that time, which we're going to put up on the screen now, where they said Trump's halting walk down ramp raises new health questions. The media could freely raise questions about Trump's health over one incident, but the Democrats, the left, the media, everyone says Joe Biden is perfectly fine. He's in 100% health right now, but we can't raise questions. So, do you guys think that there is a legitimate question about Joe Biden's health based on this incident as well as some of the verbal gaffes recently?
Well, I want to be careful, Joey, not to overemphasize. Let me backtrack a little bit. First off, I think Joe Biden opened himself up to a lot of criticism by criticizing Trump for kind of the same thing that he did there. The media did the same thing. When the media went after Trump, the mainstream media opened themselves up to criticism because it's like, well, why would you go after Trump, but not Biden? And we know they're not going to go after Biden because they carry water for him and his administration. That being said, does this make me think, the president's feeble, the president can't run the country? Well, his policies make me think that.
Sure.
To be completely honest with you, at least twice a week, I will do the same thing. So that doesn't concern me that much. I think, it's a windy day. I'm not trying to carry water for Biden or anything. I think that, when you're climbing the steps, sometimes that happens. He's a 78-year-old man. I think when you get older, your bones get a little bit more feeble. So it doesn't really concern me that much. I think it's totally fair to basically say, look, the media criticized Trump for this. Biden criticized Trump for this. Where are they now? This is, really, really makes them look really dumb. Does it make me think any more than I already thought because of his policies that, he can't run the country? No, it does not.
Cameron?
And I would kind of build off what Joe is saying. I have grandparents who are that age. He's 78. I'm not really in a place to say whether he's more or less physically or mentally fit than any other 78-year-old that's out there. And I honestly think that they put out a statement, glad he's fine, but in terms of the media coverage of it, I would say there's probably more fair game there. I say that as someone who also probably would have fell going up those stairs. And I think it's one of those things where this is a sign of age, in a sense, the fact that we do have this sense of concern or even humor in a sense when we see a video like this and we're like, oh, wait, what's going on? Whereas if we saw someone who was younger, a younger leader doing this, we would figure that there probably wouldn't be any other effects to the point where it wouldn't need to prompt a statement from the White House saying he's fine. So I think if anything, this is a sign that maybe age is a factor just with certain things. It's not great optics for people who are heavily critical of his mental or physical capabilities. And that's all I have to really say on that.
Man, I have to disagree with you guys a little bit.
Ooh, a little debate. I love it.
This is a lot more alarming to me than just, everyone falls up the stairs. It wouldn't be alarming if we didn't have all these other moments of Joe Biden having issues. If you guys remember, was it like, I can't remember, it was right before he was inaugurated or right after, he sprained his ankle playing with his dogs in his house. Mm-hmm. That doesn't just happen. And now he's fallen up the stairs. He's had all these verbal gaffes lately.
I think the verbal gaffes, I kind of separate from the physical gaffes a little bit in that I think, when the verbal things concern me maybe a little bit more. I'm not really of the, opinion that, Joe Biden's going senile, all that stuff. You may disagree with me. That's totally fine. I think the physical things that comes with age, and that's not, look, I will, maybe this is not the right thing to say. I think we ought to have a limit on how old you can be to be president in the first place. Yeah. Not just because of Joe Biden, but because I don't particularly think people in their 70s and 80s are that in touch with, what's actually going on in the country. But physically, does it bother me? I mean, he's an old man. We elected an old, not we, but the country elected an old man to be president. That's kind of what you're going to get. When my grandfather, who's since passed away, was that age, I'm sure he would do the same thing. It happens. Old people have falls. Hopefully we hope that they're, for the best because of it, but I don't think it says anything about kind of their mental capacity to be president.
Yeah, I mean, it alarms me more than just an old guy falling. To me, it demonstrates, if you cannot be physically fit, if you can't walk up the stairs without falling down, you're probably not capable of being president. And I don't think that Joe Biden is. And second, the way the optics of this to foreign countries, to foreign leaders, to Putin, for example, to China, it looks so bad. The Chinese delegation in Alaska last night absolutely walked over Biden's Secretary of State. And then the next morning, Biden falls walking up the stairs into Air Force One. It just looks like America is weak. It looks like America is run by a weak leader. And the White House did a terrible thing here in excusing Biden's fall, is saying, oh, it was windy.
Well, what else should they have said?
They're admitting that a blast of wind, a gush of wind, can knock this guy down. Have you ever fallen in the wind?
No, but I've also never had to climb up on, Air Force One in the wind. So.
Trump did it.
Yeah, I mean, Trump was a younger man, not that much younger, but he was somewhat younger. And, I don't like judging people's ability to be president on their physical capacities. I like judging it on their policies.
And it's not right to do so either when you have, I don't think we could necessarily do that when you had JFK wearing a back brace, FDR essentially running the country from a wheelchair, and we have people in Congress who are disabled and stuff like that. I don't really think if we can base off physical capability, that'd be great. I think if we had Joe Biden was probably feeling a little bit overconfident going up these steps. He probably should have slowed down a little bit. Maybe one thing I want to know though is, where was Secret Service when this happened? He fell down three separate times.
Yeah.
And that, I thought that was a little bit strange.
No, that's a good question, and you do kind of, I'm not that familiar with the kind of the protocol, I guess, for that kind of stuff. I'm not a close watcher of presidents climbing stairs, I guess. But yeah, I think I tend to agree with Cameron, right? Where you're not, it's not a good look, right? I can say that it's not a good look, for better or for worse. The leader falling up. But do I blame him? Not really. Do I think he opened himself up to criticism considering his past stupid remarks? Absolutely.
Look, I disagree. I think optics matter, and I think your physical appearance as president matters. JFK tried to hide his back problems, and so
do you think we shouldn't have elected Chris Christie because he was overweight?
No, I'm not saying that. But Chris Christie didn't fall downstairs. That's problematic. If you aren't capable,
He fell upstairs.
Okay, upstairs. If you're not capable of walking on stairs, again, you're probably not capable of being president. How are you going to put in the long hours throughout
Madison
the day?
Cawthorn?
But that's different, though. He's not a weak, feeble old man.
I mean,
he
he's
doesn't.
paralyzed.
Yeah, but I get that. But he doesn't have, again, the verbal gaffes that are in conjunction with the lack of physical ability to be president. I mean, how can you put in, a 16-hour day if, again, you can't walk upstairs? How can you appear strong to Russia and China, again, if you can't walk upstairs? If wind can knock you down, you just appear weak. And I think it's really problematic, and I think it raises questions over whether Joe Biden is capable of fulfilling the office of the presidency. And yes, Joe, I think that policies matter too, and Biden's policies alone demonstrate that, but this just adds to it. And that's just what I
will
think.
say. I think that if this happened, 2-3 more times, then I'd say, okay, look, maybe we got a problem here.
We sprained his ankle not long ago.
Yeah.
Just playing with his dogs. That's not really normal. Have that ever happened to you?
No, but I don't have any dogs.
Okay, I get that. Yeah.
I'm also, I don't exercise as much as I should. I wish I had a dog, but I don't.
I don't
I'm
either.
also 24,
I
not
really
78.
want to bring Joey on the step climber at a gym now. I just want to see how long he can go on that.
Only if it's windy.
Yeah, no, that.
Okay.
I think that would be a good clip for our next segment of
Yes.
WJ Live.
I will have a special episode of WJ Live next week where I go on a stair climber with 100-mile-an-hour winds.
And maybe we'll be there just to pick you up if you fall.
Yes, better than Secret
Yes.
Service did for Biden.
Well, that would be easy because they didn't do a very good job.
Well, speaking of terrible Democrats and terrible policies, Joe, do you want to tell us about the worst mayor in America?
I would love to. I will say unequivocally, can't say that word, but Bill de Blasio is the worst mayor in America.
Absolutely.
In every single way,
Yes.
This man is a cartoon villain of what it means to be an inept and evil.
He is.
With the worst policies. And I want to tell you a little bit about the most recent thing he said about the NYPD basically stopping people who haven't committed crimes, but who have said hurtful things. And we're going to roll the clip right now.
I also think even if something is not a criminal case, a perpetrator being confronted by the city, whether it's NYPD or another agency, and being told that what they've done was very hurtful to another person and could, if ever repeated, lead to criminal charges, that's another important piece of the puzzle. That's why we need these reports. One of the things officers are trained to do is to give warnings. If someone has done something wrong, but not rising to a criminal level, it's perfectly appropriate for an NYPD officer to talk to them to say, that was not appropriate, and if you did that on a higher level, that would be a crime, and I think that has a educating impact on people. I think it has a sobering impact that we need. That's why we need every report. By the way, if something might be a crime, if it's not 100% clear, the NYPD is going to investigate. I assure you, if an NYPD officer calls you or shows up at your door to ask about something you did, that makes people think twice, and we need that.
I can't overemphasize enough how terrible of an idea this is from this absolute Joker clown, okay? He is basically saying, here's this guy, he's a progressive, he's supposed to be pro-criminal justice reform, pro-police reform, pro all this stuff. He's saying, let's use the New York City Police Department to catch people when they are saying mean things.
Didn't he defund the police in New York, too?
He did defund the police. You have this city, New York City, right? My former hometown, I grew up there, born and raised in Brooklyn, Mets fan my entire life. And he is saying, the police he is not giving the police the tools they need to deal with the actual violent crime problem, the murders, all of these horrible things, random people walking up to, old women and just either hitting them or taking their purses or whatever. I'm not exaggerating, by the way. That's happening in New York. He's saying, instead of this violent crime and dealing with this, let's use the vast resources of the New York City Police Department to stop people who are being mean to others. I hate this. This is awful. I want to draw a little bit on what I thought were some really good pieces that summed up why this is a terrible idea. From the Western Journal, from contributor Kip Jones, he wrote, and I quote, "To suggest that adults should be admonished by police over non-criminal behavior might be the most preposterous idea proposed in New York since Seinfeld character Elaine Benes, I don't know her last name, suggested to an advisor to then Mayor David Dinkins' office that all New Yorkers wear name tags." That's absolutely true. I also want to cite my former colleague, Robbie Suave at Reason, who wrote, and I think this is the most important point, all jokes aside, this is why this is a bad idea. He said, "It is thus a very bad idea for the NYPD to go around sternly lecturing people who may have engaged in hateful conduct that is not actually illegal. For one thing, this straightforwardly violates people's civil liberties. Unless you're committing a crime, your actions are no business to the government's." That is absolutely right. This is stop and frisk, an unconstitutional policy, in my opinion. This is stop and frisk on steroids. This is awful, awful, awful. What are you guys' thoughts on it?
Well, it's not even like these people are suspected of a crime.
No, they said bad. They said not nice things.
There's no reasonable doubt that something happened. There's nothing. It's just protecting essentially big babies who can't handle something mean being said. And it's New York. You grew up there.
Yeah,
there's some people that aren't nice,
yeah,
right?
That's New York.
It's just the style.
That's the world. That's what
the world.
happens.
Yeah. You can't just protect people that don't like other people that say something mean. That's stupid. And what if that extends to something like political speech?
Yeah, exactly.
What if someone has a Trump sign or, who knows, a Donald Trump Jr. sign or whatever it is
you
in
see
their
a
yard?
Trump sign as hateful conduct?
Yes.
Maybe you get a talking to from the police.
Yeah,
I think it's
knock on your door.
Very dangerous. I think that police have a job to serve in American society, but when you get police involved in conduct, in encounters that they don't really have any business being involved in, that wastes their time, for one thing, and it also can lead to situations that aren't the best. What are your thoughts on this, Cameron?
I try not to take my moral cues from New York government officials, and I think if you do, you probably have a serious problem with that. And if he made saying mean things illegal, we'd all probably be doing 3 to 5 years right now. But I think the issue with this is that he's trying to set a precedent that obviously is unenforceable. There's no way something like this could actually happen if he even put out some sort of law or order to make mean speech illegal. It wouldn't work. Regardless of what people say, there's no way you can control that. I think this is another one of those kind of virtue signaling incidents where the Democrats see a situation and they're like, hey, we have to say this thing now to make it look like we care. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this lack of authenticity, and it comes with another unrealistic proposal.
Yeah, and I think, this is the same guy, Bill de Blasio, who said before that he doesn't like the idea of private property.
Right.
He said before that landlords who don't do the things that he wants, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, we will seize their land and we will put it into the hands of a community nonprofit. Here's a guy who hates capitalism. He hates freedom in every way. He hates individual liberty, and he's not even pretending anymore. And I want to ask both of you, do you think that there are any constitutional concerns with this in terms of, police kind of pulling people over or taking people aside who aren't, committing a crime? Is that a problem? Does it violate your civil liberties?
Absolutely. I mean, you have your right to free speech that it violates, and your right to privacy. You can't just have cops pulling you over because someone said you said something bad. This is possibly the most alarming infringement on civil liberties, I think, proposed in America right now.
Wow. That's
I
saying
do.
a lot.
I think
That's
it
saying a
is.
lot.
I really do. I think the path that this leads down is extremely dangerous.
Yes.
And we can talk about, other infringements on private businesses and COVID lockdowns, but actually policing people's speech and the things they do, that's really alarming, and I think gets really dangerous.
What about you, Cameron? Do you think that this raises any constitutional civil liberties concerns?
Well, obviously, the First Amendment protects hate speech. It also probably protects in that mean speech you don't like, unless there's someone saying shouting fire in a crowded theater, or you're giving exact troop movement somewhere. That's protected speech. Anything that de Blasio does, it will probably go straight to whatever court, and they'll shoot it down right away if we have any faith in this justice system.
Do you think that the cops would actually enforce this?
Well, one thing I'll say, look, again, we support police and we support the job that police have to do. I think that the New York City Police Department does have some issues that probably need to be worked out. I think that it would be a struggle because I think it would just be unclear what they're actually supposed to do.
Right.
And as with most things, when this stuff comes from the top, most cops are really, really good people doing their job, but when the stuff comes from the top and it gets kind of garbled and you're not actually sure what you're supposed to do, and then it comes down to enforcement and it's just kind of a you-know-what show. And it's...
Well, not to mention the cops in New York hate de Blasio.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
They absolutely hate the guy, and anything that he says along those lines, no one's going to care.
Yeah. And look what we saw with stop and frisk. People, can reasonably in good faith have, discussions on whether that was good or bad. I think it was, something that led to a lot of people being searched, even if they were not committing a crime. And I think it's just a very slippery slope, because if you can say, there's a police encounter with anyone for saying a hurtful thing, that's a slippery slope. That leads you down some... I think that as I said before, the government doesn't have any business getting in people's business, and that unless they're doing something illegal, unless they're breaking the law. But these people aren't breaking the law; they're just saying arguably mean things. Hypothetically, they're hypothetically saying mean things. It's
as a cop, you just have to trust what some stranger is claiming some other stranger said to them.
It puts cops in a very difficult position.
It's a horrible position to be in.
And as Cameron said, the cops in New York City hate de Blasio, so that's a really good point. They probably wouldn't, listen to it, but I do worry, stuff that comes down from a very bad leader, when it gets all the way down to enforcement, I think that's kind of when you have some issues can come up.
And at least this is my prediction. If Cuomo makes it through, which he probably will, because these politicians are always protected, they always make it through. I bet you de Blasio is going to run for governor, and I just cannot imagine how this guy wins.
He can't.
He's hated.
Yeah, he's despised by everyone.
People are fleeing New York City because they hate de Blasio so much, even Democrats.
No, yeah, he's not popular. I mean, he wins because I wish I could tell you how he wins. I want to say it's just because New York is so Democratic and he has such a hold on sort of the system that he's just guaranteed, the Democratic nominee, and no Republican who runs against him is going to win. Nicole Malliotakis, who's now the representative for Staten Island, parts of Brooklyn, she's a Republican. She ran against him for mayor in 2017. She got crushed because, New York is just, they'll vote for, the progressive incumbent. And hopefully, I'm not sure exactly how the system works, but I think de Blasio will be done. De Blasio is done. His mayoral term is up
he's done
at the end of this year,
then
thankfully.
Andrew Yang's the front runner.
Yeah,
probably.
Andrew Yang's the front runner, who would probably be a big improvement over.
I think so.
Over de Blasio, but a dead horse would be an improvement over de Blasio. Yeah, anyone would. I would be, and I can't run a city.
There you go. You move back to New York. Work for the Western Journal.
I don't know if I'd want to move back
Open
to
the New York bureau of Western
all the
Journal.
Mets games that I want.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else for us on this topic?
I don't think so.
Joe?
I think I've exhausted my anger.
Cameron, do you have anything else you'd like to add on the worst mayor in America?
All I have to say is he only has a few more months left in office, and he's going to find new ways to piss off New Yorkers.
Yes. Sure he will. Yeah.
Well, with that, folks, I think we're going to close today's episode of WJ Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to remind you guys of a scheduling change that is happening next week. Our show is going to 3 days a week. We will be on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the same time, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And you can catch all of our episodes on YouTube. Reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel before the live closes today. And you can go to our website to westernjournal.com/join to hear truth every single day from us. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you here next Monday.